Good morning and welcome to today's strategy call. Brian has had to step away for another obligation. So for those who do not know me, my name is Tina Bradford. I am also one of the customer success managers here at Mortgage Coach. And honestly, I did not have an agenda for which strategy that I was going to teach. So if anyone came here with a certain strategy that you have seen used, that you would like me to demonstrate, please, I've unmuted you all. Feel free to unmute yourself, jump in, tell me what it is that you would like to see. If no one jumps in, I do have a few strategies and a few things up my sleeve that I can always pull out and use for you. So does anyone have a strategy they would like to see in today's presentation that you feel is very relevant in today's market? Rent versus own, perfect. Let's do that rent versus own presentation then. Rent versus own is a fun one because you can actually start it out and build that presentation not being a rent versus own, and then decide to come back later and switch it over to a rent versus own and add that information in. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start it off not like a rent versus own. I'm going to show you the output. We're going to switch it over to a rent versus own, and that way you can see how you also am able to switch it back and forth based on what you feel your client is best going to resonate with and based on the knowledge you know about your client. So we're going to build out a basic presentation. We're going to place in the client's name. We're going to place in the client's phone number. Now remember, this phone number helps save you time. Every time the client looks at the presentation, you get that email. And that email that you get, if you place a phone number here, it's going to be on that alert. So if you're opening that alert up on your phone, then you can use it as a hot touch. Just touch it and you'll call the client. And this is going to be a purchase. And I'm going to say I'm going to close this January 2021. Clicking on the next. The only one required is here, your new home. If you don't have an address, you still want to resonate with the client. You still want them to get warm, fuzzy feelings that, hey, this is a possibility, this is our next step. Leaving it blank or putting TBD does not give anyone warm, fuzzy feelings. If you do have integrations, if you have OB, or if you have closing corp, you want to make sure include the minimum of at least a city, state, and zip here. And that way, when you go in and you use those integrations, you're not having to put it back in. It'll already be in there for you. Top section, bottom section, totally for you. You don't need to fill it in if you don't want to. And then we're going to go to our goals. This is a purchase, so I'm just going to click purchase a new home. Moving on to our assumptions. How much do they qualify for? This is the only spot I'm going to fill in. That little red indicator right here, or the asterisk, that's telling me this is a minimum field to be filled in. If I fill everything in that it has that little asterisk, you're going to have a complete TCA at the end. So I'm going to say they're going to qualify for $249. Yes, James, HomeBot is an integration. And I can, at the end, I can turn off the recording for this and we can go through that as well. Moving on forward, affordability only for you. Nothing here is required for the output of the total cost analysis. However, let's say I'm a little concerned about the DTI. They're making $39,000 and they have a monthly debt. They have a car payment of $329 that they're paying every month. So I want to make sure that we are in line with our DTI. This is the minimum information I'm going to put in here. Remember, client does not see this. This is to help you as the loan officer. I'm not going to use the expenditure page unless I need somewhere to tuck in some information. I'm going to skip right over it. It's not required. To our product one. Product one, I'm going to say we're going to do an FHA. First time purchase, something simple. If you have product templates, this is going to speed up your process because simply clicking that FHA product template, it should drop in at minimum your MI. So you won't have to remember all those MI factors, and so you'll be able to just drop it in. I'm going to do it from scratch for those of you who do not have a product template. I'm going to come down here. I need to add my upfront MI, FHA. I'm going to use the 3.5% down payment. I'm going to either run my OB if I have it or place in my interest rate. Placing in my months for my term, 360 for 30 year. And then that's the only thing I need on this page, clicking to the next page. Now I'm going to go into my closing costs. Now remember, let's say you're a brand new loan officer just starting out. You don't have closing cost templates. Take that loan estimate and look up what is the APR cost. Place it in here as a whole. What is your prepaid days of interest? Whoops, not 215. What are your total of your escrow accounts? And what are your non-APR costs? Now, once I place this in there, if there is a contribution, I could place that in there as well. And then my upfront MI, I'm going to place that upfront MI right here. I want to add that upfront MI to the loan, so I'm going to click here. Now, what you'll notice is I just placed all of this information in there bulk. If I place it in there bulk, I cannot place in the actual reserved months down here because I already placed that information over in the bulk window. It is a one or the other. But I could add in my mortgage insurance here and my minimum months of 360. So, and adding in my monthly property tax and hazard insurance. I'm going to use the percentage on my hazard insurance. So I could place it in here. The other option is to use your fee templates. So if you place bulk, you have to do bulk. You cannot put in the months and have it calculate for you. You place that in your prepaid escrows, or you can come in, use your template, and I'm just going to say it's an FHA purchase. If I use my closing corp, I could pull my closing corp fees in there too. And then once I'm happy, I'm going to apply it to the template. There is not a Canadian version of this tool. Unfortunately, we are not in Canada. And it's not usable for Canada loans because you guys do it more similar to our ARM loans. So not at this point. But I would recommend going into, I'm going to quickly jump ship really quick, going into the help and submit a request to get it placed into Canada. The more requests we get, the higher it goes on the list. So now that I place the closing cost in here, you'll see they're grayed out and I can't put bulk costs in there. Now I'm going to move to the next window. Everything I already put in there, but you'll see it's the basic information. But now I need to place in my hazard insurance. I'm going to say 2 months plus 12, so I'm doing a total of 14, and 3 months tax reserves. Now I can add my second product. Second product, I'm just going to quickly do a 3% down. So conventional 3%. I'm going to copy from my FHA and click on OK. Now, why do I copy my FHA? It is going to be faster. I don't have to come back and put in my taxes, insurance, prepaids. If your closing costs are the same with every type of loan, you can place those in there as well. I'm going to take off that upfront premium. I'm going to change it to 3%. If my interest rate is different, I'm going to change my interest rate. And then over on this page, you'll see I no longer have that upfront MI. Last thing I can do is my mortgage insurance. So then I can go in and I can type in my mortgage insurance based on whatever it's going to be. Can I see a raise of hand? Who in here is an enterprise client? If you know that you're an enterprise client, raise your hand for me. So only one hand up here for you. We do have now MI Get Pricing. but your enterprise has to turn it on. So you might want to ask them about it. They're welcome to email either myself or Brian to get information on that. So everything else I'm going to say is the same. So now I have my basic analysis. Set this up for my client based on what I like, and I'm not going to go through all the windows here. And then I'm just going to use my little cheat over here to open up the presentation. So this is a basic presentation here. I haven't done that rent versus own yet, but I want you to see the difference between the rent versus own and this one. The main difference that you see is that monthly payment here and this window up here, monthly payment difference. This will show the net difference between it, meaning the unrecoverable cost, and this one shows the total payment difference. So in this case, the FHA is $13.50 less. However, they would save $2,591 for the first 5 years if they were to go with this one, and they would have a little bit more equity with that FHA. Now it is going to change this window as well on that rent versus own. So now that I build out a basic total cost analysis, I'm like, maybe they're going to want a rent versus own analysis. So I can go back here into client, the first one, and where it says, is this rent versus own, I'm simply going to switch it to yes. Now when I go through the windows, I'm going to have my property address in there. I'm going to change it to get my first home. And in the assumption is where we're going to see that difference. So in that assumption, we're going to see now where it asks for the current rent. I'm going to say the current rent they're paying is $1,400. I'm going to say they're on a 3% annual increase. Their monthly renter's insurance. Make sure that if they are in any organized, not a privately owned home, they have renter's insurance, or they should have renter's insurance. And that is going to be placed with their homeowner's insurance. So make sure you're putting in that monthly renter's insurance here. Other monthly rental expense. Are they paying cat or dog deposit every month that they have because they have pets? Are they renting a washer, dryer, refrigerator? Are they renting storage or garage or carport? What are those extra expenses that once they are no longer renting, they no longer have? I'm going to say they have $125 of other rental expenses that they're renting. Everything else I already built in here, so nothing else is going to change in here. It's just the output. I'm going to go into presentation or into analysis and adjust this to anything that I want. So I still like showing total interest in MI paid. I'm going to switch that back. Rent versus principal paid is what I'm going to leave it on. And the reason I'm leaving it on rent versus principal paid is the other two options concern tax benefit. I'm not showing a tax benefit, so I don't want to show the output to include tax benefit. We can go back and cover tax benefit after I show this output to show you how that's going to come into play. In many areas, it doesn't come into play because the interest of the home alone does not have a tax impact because of the high amount of standard deductions that we currently have. So I'm going to go down again, opening up the presentation. I'm going to open it the other way so I can place a date on it and click on preview. So here is the output of the rent versus own, and this is the section where a lot of loan officers get more confused because it hasn't been explained to them. In this window here, remember we showed the difference of the payment before on the TCA. This is the difference of the payment. There's a $13.50 difference. In this window now, we are showing the net monthly payment. What is the net monthly payment? It is the unrecoverable cost of renting, the true cost of renting. Any money of that payment that is applied towards principal is not included in this window. So if I look over here, I can see here's the total payment is here, And here's the net monthly payment. I have subtracted the money that goes towards principal. So that is what this window is showing, is that net monthly payment. That's one of the big differences. Second big difference, rent versus principal paid in 60 months. Rent, this is unrecoverable. Principal, this is going towards equity. So this is the amount of money being applied towards equity that's building them growth. In the third window, I chose to show rent versus interest in MI. What am I showing in this window? I am showing unrecoverable cost to unrecoverable cost. Apples to apples. I am showing the reality of renting compared to owning and the true cost of home ownership. So if I go into here, I can go in and talk about the client's equity that they are building, because this is going to be a huge factor. Or I could choose to show rent versus principal paid or equity here, net worth. Any questions on the output? And I'm going to unmute you too, Tiffany, just in case. If you do have questions, you can unmute yourself or type it in, either one.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Yep. Now let's go in a little bit on the tax information. So I'm going to go back here to Mortgage Coach, to the advice engine, and in the affordability section, down here in the bottom, this is where I'm going to see the tax information, standard deduction and tax bracket and filing status. These are the three factors that will come into play if they do have a tax deduction based on where they're buying. On the right-hand side, we have the standard deductions. These are the new standard deductions based on the new tax laws. So we have increased that $1,200 to $1,200 or $12,400. So I'm going to say it's a single person. I'm going to put that standard deduction in here. What does this mean? The interest of the home has to be higher or more costly than the $12,400 for that year in order for there to be a tax benefit. I'm going to say their tax bracket, their income's pretty low, so they would probably be at maybe a 22%. It would still be pretty low, and they're a single person. Now on the output, we're going to switch that output to show different. We're going to show tax benefit analysis and total interest paid. I'm going to put it on total net worth just so we can see something different. Now when I go to the presentation, actually I'm just going to, oh, there, it switched over. Now what you're going to see is something different. Now I'm also taking that tax benefit away from the total payment, because remember, this is money going back into my client's pocket. So I'm going to show that, and that's going to be demonstrated in this net monthly payment. Their payment's going to be less because now I'm showing they do get a tax benefit. But what you'll notice is that tax benefit is the same across the board. Why is it the same? It's the same because the interest in the home is less than that standard deduction of $12,400. So there is no tax benefit for buying based on the interest of the home alone. Now you could still have a conversation with your client here, and this could be a great referral spot, because you could say, you know what, purchasing this home alone is not going to give you a tax benefit. I'm not a financial advisor. Do you have a financial advisor we can have the discussion with to see what your actual tax benefit would be? And if they say yes, great, you'll get to meet with them and you'll have a new referral partner because they'll see this and they have nothing like it. Or they'll say no, and you'll be able to give them a referral, and there's a referral in your back pocket. So that's the way that you can do it. Even if you're showing this, you can still use it to your benefit by saying, based on this interest of the home alone, there is no tax benefit. However, we need to talk to a financial advisor. Now let's go back here and let's increase the cost of the home. So let's say the home is $325,000. And the reason I'm increasing the home is because what will happen is when you see it magically change. Did it change? Oh, still not high enough. Let's increase it more. And I may need to just reopen it. Let's reopen it. It's not changing it. Hold on, let me do one thing. I'm going to trick the system. Something got stuck in my system. I'm going to switch it to no here, and I'm going to change my assumption here to 375. Then we're going to reopen it to see. I'm in a demo environment, so sometimes things, if they're working on the back end, it doesn't go my way. Nope, it's still stuck. So this is stuck, but what would happen is based on that 375 cost, it would increase that tax benefit. So you would see a tax benefit. Tax benefit here would probably be around $330 a month based on that scenario. So then you would see a tax benefit here for purchasing. So when you do change that over, if it's a higher price range. Now, what are the price ranges? Around 275 is when you see a tax benefit starting to show for a single person. And that's based on the, let me change this back to rent versus own. That's based on the standard deductions that are over here in this window. There we go. Based on the standard deductions, married filing jointly is around 575, and head of household, I haven't looked at it for a little while, but I think it's around 425. So those are those roundabout cutoffs. Remember, it is based on the interest of the loan as well as what percentage or what tax bracket they're in. So the tax bracket you would have in there as well as their tax percentage. So based on those, that's where you're going to have to play with it to see which one is a tax benefit and where that cutoff is for your client. But regardless, cutoff or not, if you decide, let's say you even put the tax information in and you don't want to show that tax benefit analysis, you can leave it on the rent versus principal paid. 9 times out of 10, honestly, this is what most of the loan officers are showing when they do show that rent versus own presentation, is they're just showing that one window that shows the unrecoverable cost versus them growing equity. Any questions? Okay, looks good. I'm going to go ahead and